Hello internet users and welcome back to the world of Pokemon. So if you're a regular viewer of this channel, then you ought to know that I like talking about fan projects related to some of my favorite games. Yet so far, something I've never really brought up is the popular subject of ROM hacks. And why is that? Well, truth be told, for some reason I haven't actually felt like diving into them as much as others have. As well, a lot of the ones that I have played have given me mixed feelings, to say the least. But for the last while, I've actually had the pleasure of playing a really interesting one that I think a lot more people should know about. So take a seat and allow me to introduce you all to Pokemon Crystal Clear. Pokemon Crystal Clear is a ROM hack of Pokemon Crystal that aims to take the original game and turn it into an open-world experience. Yes, you just heard me right, a Gen 2 Pokemon adventure where you can go just about wherever you want, right from the get-go. How exactly does that work, you may ask? Well, let's start right from the beginning with a new game. As we all know, you normally start your journey in New Bark Town in Johto, but here you also get the option to choose Pallet Town in Kanto instead. Next, there is a bit of character customization, as much as there can be for a Game Boy game anyway. You can select from 4 different trainers, as well as what color you want their overworld sprite to be. And of course, you'll then get to choose your starter. You can pick from the existing 6 starter Pokemon, or go with something a bit more unconventional to challenge yourself with. As of the current version, there are 28 Pokemon to choose from, each of which come with their own held item and even some egg moves. You might think that the egg moves are a bit much for a starter, but trust me, it's for the best. When I was playing an earlier version with my brother, we picked Tyrogue, which meant it was going to be stuck with nothing but Tackle for a while. As you can imagine, that makes for a pretty dull starter choice, and I'm glad that the egg moves were later added. With your Pokemon, region, and trainer chosen, you're now free to explore the world however you want to. The game's maps have been altered so that you don't need HM moves to progress. For example, if you start in New Bark Town, you can immediately head to Tojo Falls on the right, as there is now a bridge to walk on. Caves like the Ice Path no longer require you to use strength to get through, and there is an added ferry service you can take to reach islands without the need for surf. And you can even ride the magnet train whenever you want. You aren't going to run into anyone blocking your path until you defeat a dozen Team Rocket Grunts. The HMs are still obtainable in-game and have their use though. If you want to explore a few optional areas, you're going to need to get them. There is an NPC in each region for each HM, and they'll give it to you once you have a few badges. Another notable thing is that once you get Fly, you can travel to any town on the map, regardless of whether or not you've been there yet. Next, I want to talk about one of Crystal Clear's most appealing features. Out of the 16 gyms in the game, you can face them in any order you want. The levels of all the trainers and gym leaders in the game scale depending on how many badges you possess. This means that you could go to Blue right away, and he'll have pretty low-level Pokemon. But if you go to Faulkner with 15 badges, he'll have a full team, including a Zapdos. In addition to that, once a gym is cleared, you have the option to rematch it as often as you'd like. You can also adjust the level of the gym based on how many badges you have, so once you have them all, you can go and challenge them at the highest level just to see how brutal each leader can potentially be. Another reason that I really like this idea is because it makes you have to plan ahead a bit. Should you go right for the gyms that your team has an advantage over? Or should you do the opposite and take them down before they get too strong? The rematch function is also really helpful for when you need to grind specific Pokemon too. The game also adds a couple of really nice small touches for both casual and hardcore fans alike. You can now run by holding down B, something that wouldn't become standard for the series until Ruby and Sapphire came out. When healing at the Pokemon Center, you can completely skip over Nurse Joy's dialogue, and she will heal you instantly by interacting with her. You also automatically turn around when this happens, so you can't accidentally hit the button and talk to her again. Your Pokemon stat screen now has an additional page which displays their DVs and friendship value. There is now an NPC in both regions' department stores called the Trade Back Guy. If you have any Pokemon that can only be evolved by trading, just speak with him to evolve it without the hassle of connecting to another game. All Pokemon in the game now have a unique sprite for the party menu, instead of a generic one shared between a lot of them. Many Pokemon colors have been adjusted to better represent their official designs. For example, the Machop line is now blue instead of brown. The game makes soft resetting for shiny Pokemon more efficient, and lets you skip the title screen altogether on reset. And in the case of Celebi, once it makes its entrance, you're given the option to save so that you won't have to sit through the animation every time. Just make sure that the PC box you're set to isn't full before you do. I didn't. Both the Celadon and Goldenrod Game Corner have more Pokemon and item prize options, and the overworld poison mechanic has been updated so that the Pokemon will survive with 1 HP instead of fainting. Again, that's just some of the small stuff. There's even more to make playing through this game a treat. On the options menu, you can now set certain music tracks to play at specific times. This includes 8-bit renditions of battle themes from future games. Being able to customize something like this while exploring the world at my own pace is a really great feature to have. Something else that's pretty cool to see is the addition of some new areas, as well as some restored ones for Kanto. Remember how in Gen 2, Viridian Forest was reduced to just an awkward little maze of trees? Well, it's now completely back in crystal clear, in all its former glory. The same can be said for places like the Seafoam Islands, Cerulean Cave, Power Plant, the Safari Zone, and even the ruins of the Pokemon Mansion. There is a whole lot more to do and see in Kanto this time around than there was in the original Gen 2 games. As for new areas, there is now New Cinnabar Island, a place built after the eruption that destroyed the original. And in one of the more recent updates, you can now cross the water a bit in Cherry Grove to explore a new cave area. Another thing that Crystal Clear does is make it so that every Pokemon can be caught and obtained somewhere in the game. You can now complete the Pokédex without worrying about a few odd version exclusives, making it an in-game goal that's actually fun to complete this time around. This of course includes the legendary Pokemon that were previously unavailable, and they now even have their own battle themes. The legendary birds can be caught, there is a fun side quest you can do to find Mewtwo, Celebi is here, and Mew can be found somewhere. The next thing I want to talk about is the Elite Four. Although there isn't really any big story elements you'll see while playing, the game is meant to take place after the original Pokemon Crystal. Part of that means that the Pokemon League now has new characters as the Elite Four and Champion. I won't show who they are or what Pokemon they have, because I know there are people who will want to see it for themselves. But honestly, this is something that I can see being hit or miss for a lot of people. Given that the premise of the game is about taking something familiar and presenting it in a new way, I'm sure that many would have preferred to face the original Pokemon League, especially since all of the gym leaders defeated up to this point were the same too. Now, to be absolutely fair, you can still technically face them. At the League, there is a room where those 5 characters can be battled as a simulation, but in my opinion, it's just not the same. But anyways, like usual, you can go and challenge the Elite Four whenever you have 8 badges. Not 8 from Johto or 8 from Kanto, you can bounce back and forth between the 2 regions, battling whichever leaders you want. As long as you get at least 8, you're good to go. And of course, once you beat them, there is a trainer waiting for you at the top of Mount Silver. Apparently who this person is determined by which trainer you've chosen and which region you've started in. Again, this is some endgame stuff, so I won't ruin the surprise, but I did enjoy the battle there. I think that for the most part, Pokemon Crystal Clear accomplishes what it sets out to do, and even more. As someone who has played through the original game many times, being able to go wherever I want from the start is something that I didn't even know I wanted, and I'm sure there is plenty of others out there that will feel the same. One of the biggest reasons that I still go back and play through the older Pokemon games is due to how replayable they are. There's a lot of different ways to play them, and nowadays, especially on this site, we're seeing even more ideas tossed around. You've got Nuzlocke runs, Pokemon Centerless runs, and even Zero Common Sense runs. And Crystal Clear opens up even more possibilities for how fans could play. This, along with all of the extra added conveniences, has honestly spoiled me. I don't think I can ever really go back to playing Crystal version casually anymore. I'd rather just play this instead. I think it's that good. In fact, even though I've just finished playing through, I already have the urge to start over and play again. What's also amazing to see is the fact that there is still more being put into the game. From when I began to when I completed it, there were more starter options and also new areas added. Going back to what I was saying about challenging yourself when playing, Crystal Clear offers the choice of picking Smeargle, Ditto, Unknown, and Magikarp as hard mode starters. For Smeargle in particular, it's holding some mail, which contains an encouraging message to those smart enough to pick it. And while we're on the subject of updates, the developer, Shockslayer, has also given me some footage to show what else is in the works for future versions. At the time of making this video, there are plans for adding a follow mechanic like in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This will even include some small touches, such as the follower Pokemon using overworld moves, flying and floating Pokemon will hover behind you, and there is even a unique animation when healing at the Pokemon Center. Really, there is so much more about Crystal Clear that I could go on and on about, but I think you all get the point by now, and I think it's best that there are things for you to see for yourself when you play it. My biggest reason for making this video is to let more people know about its existence, as there aren't a whole lot of ROM hacks out there with this level of quality. So do yourself a favor and give it a try. The game can be found at the developer's website, shockslayer.com. My name is Pikasprey, and thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.